Okay, this is Chapter 3, Part 8 of Medical, Legal, and Ethical Issues. We're going to talk a little bit about confidentiality here. And just to go ahead and make a good point here is that our what we say to a patient, every bit of that is confidential. We do not reveal any information about our patients to anyone other than those who are authorized to know so. For instance, the only people we want to tell anything about when it comes to our patients is like the nurse that you're going to transfer care to, or even the patient care tech if you're transferring some care over and they're going to be participating in the care of that patient. The physician, you can reveal information to them. Your partner, if your partner's helping you. For instance, if you're in the back of the truck and your patient is allergic to betadine and your partner's about to start an IV on them, well then you might want to make sure they know, your partner knows that, hey, this patient's allergic to betadine, and that would be patient information. So confidential information includes assessment findings, treatment provided, diagnosis, you just being there and responding, things that you see around the house, the condition of the house, the background leading up to the events. Any of that is considered confidential information. And the best thing you can do if you're ever asked, especially by a reporter or anything, about anything that has to do with a call you're on, refer them to your supervisor. The thing is, if you release any information, you could be liable for a breach of confidentiality, and you could come under civil or even criminal charges. So, to protect yourself, document only objective findings, not personal opinions. You want to make sure that you place in your report the exact details of what you see, not what you think. Especially, let's take for instance a child abuse case. Do not put in your report that you think that the child is being abused. What you would do is you would put down what you saw that made you think that. But you don't say, hey, I think the child's being abused. You put, responded to a 5-year-old that had circumferential burns on both his legs from his ankles down, or he had whip marks on the back of his back, and so on. But don't get yourself in trouble putting anything, and then certainly don't go back and talk about it. And one thing, when you're talking about patient information, you want to be careful where you do it as well. You want to make sure that you're not doing it in earshot of everybody. Talking about a patient's information in an elevator or in the cafeteria or in the hallway may not be appropriate. So generally, we can only release records if the patient signs a release or if there's a legal subpoena presented. So if it's a legal subpoena, well then we will have to give them up. But that's not you generally. That's going to be someone from the patient records department taking care of that. And sometimes we turn our medical records over to health agencies concerning diseases that may affect the population. For instance, like tuberculosis and so on. So, records could be released in the event such as seizure activity that may be reported to the Department of Motor Vehicles. That's an incident. That's not something where you're going to run out and do it. Automatic releases, that's once again not something that you'll do in today's digital age. If it's something that's an automatic release, that would automatically go through the system, or either the medical records clerks will take care of that. Cases of abuse, or rape to the authorities, well then they'll come in and they'll request it. Once again, that's going to go through your records department. You're not going to give that up. And if needed by billing personnel, and that's something that you will do just as a normal everyday thing. Most services where you work at, you're going to break down paperwork and you're going to do a billing ticket, and you're going to turn that paperwork in to a specific location so it can be forwarded to the billing department, and that is completely appropriate. So let's talk about HIPAA right quick, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And it was established to help actually make communicating more efficient, but also safer, because everyone has a right to have their medical information kept private. And the old laws, there were old laws in effect, but these laws help strengthen the older laws. And it provides safeguards for patient confidentiality, and it outlines what can be released and what can't be released. And it provides us some guidance on what information is protected. Pretty much anything that has to do with the patient's condition that we are going to be associated with is protected information. Responsibilities regarding the protection this law puts in effect to every medical provider out there, that we are all responsible in efforts to protect individual patient privacy and make sure that their medical records are kept private and protected. And it provides for penalties for breaching that protection. So if we do something and that leads to a breach, then we could be held liable and we could be fined. So one thing that I like to do, and I tell all my students, is consider all patient information to be protected health information, PHI. If anyone needs anything that's outside of the nurse that's taking care of the patient, or anybody part of the patient care team taking care of that patient, you need to contact your supervisor and let them handle it. Okay, well, that ends this section of the lecture on health insurance portability and accountability and patient records. I hope this was helpful. Please stay tuned. We have part 9 coming up next, which is records and reports.